Hello everyone, welcome. Today in this video, we are going to be creating an Excel monthly budget spreadsheet. That's what we are going to be creating in this video today. It is pretty straightforward to create. We have our title, which is the monthly budget. We have the after expenses, which means after everything is calculated, what is left, this is the amount. And we also have the date from January down to December. We have three expenses we are calculating right here. We have the fixed expenses, the variable expenses, and we have the one-time expenses. We also have an option to input our income and also the total expenses. The total expenses is gotten from the total value of the fixed expense, the variable, and the one-time expenses. So how did we get our after expenses? By subtracting total expenses from our income. That's the formula to do that. So this is what we are going to be creating today in this video. And also we can change the values. It will change in the total value. So if we change the 600 to, let's say, 500, the total is going to change. You see, it went from $7,300 to $7,200. Without further much delay, let's proceed. We are going to be creating it from scratch, so we are going to use a new sheet. So now we are on our new sheet. Let's begin. The first thing we need to do, I want you to specify the title. The title is monthly budget, so let's write that. Let's go down to this empty cell right here. So what is going to be the next thing? The next thing is we are going to specify after expenses, which is the amount left after all the expenses is done. So let's put in after expenses. I'm putting the colon. Let's leave it this way. So now, guys, after writing the monthly budget and putting in the after expenses, I want us to do something. You see, this monthly budget right here, I want us to drag it down. Let's just drag it up to, let's say, O. Then we are going to navigate up under Home. We are going to click on this Merge and Center. And we are going to fill it with, let's say, color black and change the text to white. We are going to increase the font a little bit. Let's give it 16. Let's give it 16. Now, as for after expenses, we are going to do the same, but a little bit different. So we're going to click on A2, drag it down. We're going to drag it down. So it's going to touch A3 row, then drag it up until O. And we're going to do the same, click Merge and Center. And we're going to click this Align Left right here. So let's leave it this way. So put it up like this. We click on the middle align to make it be exactly at the middle. So now let's increase the font size. Let's say 16 and let's bold it. Now that we have done that, the next thing we are going to do is to specify the months. We are going to be using from January to December. So let's specify the months. Let's start by typing in Jan, which is January. Navigate down, there's a little plus icon here. I'm going to drag it so until it gets to December. So this December will stop here. As you can see, it has been populated with the months. So we have January down to December. So let's bold it. Let's bold it. Let me increase the font a little. Let me increase it to 12. I think that will be enough. I want us to fill this. I want us to fill this. So to do that, you click on the beginning, which is A4. Drag it down to December. Or you can add extra cell here. I'm going to navigate up and click on the fill color. click on this down arrow and specify what you want to fill it with. So I'm going to be using the black color. Click on it and I'm going to change the text to white. So click on this white. So what is the next thing we are going to do? We are going to specify our fixed expenses. Remember, we are using three expenses here. We are using the fixed expenses, the variable expenses, and the one-time expenses. So let's specify the fixed expenses. So let's go down to A6. Let's just leave let's leave an empty row. Let's go down to A6 and let's write the fixed expenses. Sorry, fixed expenses. Let's click and drag it down. I'm going to use the below row also, which is A7. Drag it up until this December. Once we are done, we click on merge and center, and it will take it to the center. Increase the font a little to 14 and bold it. I think that's pretty good. You see, I want us to reduce this. So let's reduce, or let's leave it this way. Let's leave it this way. So now, after we have written the fixed expenses, after we have done that, now let's begin specifying our fixed expenses. So what are we adding in the fixed expenses section? So what are we going to add? Let's add housing costs. Housing costs. Go down. Let's add utilities. Go down. What are we adding again? Let's add debt, phone bills, and satellite cable. So let's move on to the next. No, let's add our total, which is very important. Let's add the total. Let's bold it. I want us to bold it and let's make it red. Let's make it red. Let's fill it with red color. I think this should do. So now let's move on to the next, which is the variable expenses. So let's use the variable expenses. Let's type in variable expenses. I'm going to do the same thing we did for the fixed expenses. So let's click the A15, drag it down to A16. Now move it towards the end of December. Click merge and center. I'm going to bold it, increase the font a little. So let's leave it at 14. Now let's put in the values for the variable expenses. Let's use clothing, personal care items, entertainment. Let's add personal insurance. And let's add savings and investments. Let's move down and specify the total. Let's bold it like we did above. Bold it. Now drag down to N and let's fill it with the red. Now let's do the same for the one-time expenses. Let's specify our one-time expenses. One-time expenses. So let me do the same the way we did above. You already know how to do. So now let's specify the options for one-time expenses. Let's use emergencies, special occasions, gifts, and car repairs. Let's do that. Let's specify the total and do the same like we did. Click and drag. Fill it with red color. So now we have our fixed expenses, we have our variable expenses, and we have our one-time expenses. So what again are we specifying? We want to specify our income, which is very important. Sorry, I did not bold this total. Let me bold it. Click bold. So we want to specify our income, and also we want to specify our total expenses. To get our after expenses, we are going to say income minus the total expenses. So let's specify income. Let's bold it. And let's go down. Let's bold it. And let's go down to specify our total expenses. Total expenses. Now that we have designed our spreadsheet, let's begin by adding values and also inserting the formula so that it will start functioning. So what is the next thing we are going to do? First, we are going to specify some values for the fixed expenses. Let's specify random numbers. Let's say 120, let's say 100, let's say 150, let's say 140, and let's say 50. These numbers are not correct. I'm just giving it random numbers. So now, what are we going to do? Let's give it a dollar sign. Let's click and drag it down, and under the home tab, we are going to navigate to the number and click the dollar sign. So at every single number here, we have the dollar sign to indicate that it has to do with money and not just anyhow number. So after we must have done this, let's calculate for the total. So how are we going to do the total? The cell after the total, we are going to click on it, which is the B14. We are going to click on it. We are going to navigate up, and we are going to write a special formula that is going to calculate the total values for these. To calculate the total values for all of these. So click on the B14 and let's specify our formula. So we're going to say equal to, we're going to put in sum, bracket open, bracket open, and we're going to put in our formula. So the formula right here is this. The formula right here is, we want to add everything here. So we are going to, after specifying the bracket open, we are going to say B14. As you can see, B14 is highlighted. And we're going to put in colon. So sorry guys, there's a mistake. We are not putting in B14, we are putting in B8 because we are calculating the total expense and it should start from housing cost, which is B8. It should start from B8 down to December, and December is M. So it should be B8 colon M12. So let me erase that. We're going to put in B8, which is this B8. So it means we are starting from here, and we're going to put in colon, and we're going to put in M12. The reason why we are putting in M12 is because the last month here is December, and December is under M. So we are going to put in M, this 12 here. We're going to put it here. So you can see everything here is highlighted. So remember, since we are calculating total for January, February, March, April, that's the reason why we are highlighting everything here. After we must have done that, we are going to close brackets, and we are going to click on enter. Now the total value is outputted. So if we should change any value here, let's say we change this to 90 and click enter, you see the total value change. So we are going to do the same thing for the variable expenses. So for the variable expenses, we are going to put in a formula to calculate the total. But first, let's put in the numbers. So for the clothing, I'm going to use, let's put in random numbers. After we must have done that, so let's insert this cell after this total. We're going to click on it, which is the B24. So we're going to navigate up, and we're going to type in our formula, which is equal to, remember, the sum, bracket open. So what are we putting there? We are going to put in B18 all the way to M22. That's what we are going to be doing. So if we type in B18, you can see the clothing is highlighted. We can then put colon and drag it down. We can either drag it down all the way to M, or we're going to just click M22. This is 22, so we're going to trace the row down to M. So click here. As you can see, everything is highlighted, and we're going to close the brackets and click enter. But guys, we made a mistake. We didn't specify the dollar sign, the dollar symbol. So let's click on this 80 and highlight it down. Under home, we are going to click dollar inside the number section. Click dollar, and the same thing, we are going to add dollar to it. So now let's do the same for the one-time expense. So let's give in some values, random numbers. So let's add dollar symbol, add the symbol. So for the total, we are going to use the sum formula. We're going to say sum, bracket open. We are going to specify the B27. You can click on B27 here. Sorry, B27 here, down to M30 under M. Oh, sorry, B27 colon M30. So everything is highlighted. We are going to close the brackets and click enter, and the value of total will be outputted. Now that we have entered our values and we have entered the formula for the fixed expenses, variable, and the one-time expenses, the next we're going to do is let's specify our income. Let's give it a random number. So I'll put in $10K. So let's put in 10,000. After we must have done 10,000, and let's put in 10,000 and specify dollar sign. So now for the total expenses, we want to know the total expenses. After we must have pay this, pay that, the total expenses for each expenses. We want to know the total, the overall total. How are we going to do that? To get the overall total, what we are going to do is that we are going to get the total for fixed, variable, and one time, and we're going to add them all together. So we are going to click on the cell after total expenses. We're going to navigate up, and we're going to say equal to the sum, and we're going to put in, you can navigate up to specify the column. So here we're going to say, we're going to click this B14, click on it, and B14 will appear at the top. After doing that, we're going to put in the plus icon. We're going to navigate down. We're going to click here, right here. B24 will appear. We're going to put the plus icon. We're going to navigate down and click the B32, and B32 will appear. After we have done that, we are going to close the bracket and click enter. And guys, you can see this is the total expenses, 1,000 $555. So after we are done with everything, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to specify our after expenses. So after everything is done, what is going to be our after expenses, which is like the main reason why we are even doing this spreadsheet in the first place, because we want to know what is left after everything has been calculated. So now for the after expenses, we are going to specify a formula that is going to do that. So click on the after expenses row, click on it, navigate up, and now we are going to first let's delete this. So let's rewrite everything from beginning. So we are going to use equal to as usual. In quotes, we are going to put in after expenses, and that's because we want after expenses to be the first thing that appear, followed by the expenses remaining. That's the reason why we are putting this after expenses in quotes. After expenses colon the dollar symbol. So now we put after expenses colon dollar symbol in quotes. So now we are going to specify the formula. Now we are going to use ampersand, which means that we are adding a formula to this text here. We are adding a formula to this text here. That's what it means. So that we are going to say the bracket open, and we're going to specify B34 minus B35. And what is B34? B34 is this right here. Remember, the amount is under the B column and is in row 34. So we can just click on it and put in our minus sign, and also click on the cell below it, which is B35. Click on it. As you can see, B34 minus B35 appeared at the top. So we're going to close the brackets and we're going to click enter. And guys, our total, our after all the expenses is done, this is what we have remaining: $8,445. That is what is remaining. I hope my explanation is clear. If you have any question at all, please, I want you to leave your question in the comment section. I will do my best, my absolute best, to reply to each one of you. If you find this video useful, please give a like, subscribe to the channel for more awesome Excel stuff like this. Thank you and see you later.